welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinions on all things film. My name is Lewis, and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, how you doing, Kyle? How you doing? It's been a couple
Stress,
weeks.
stress this technology, Liz. This technology.
I know. It's never smooth. It's never smooth when we do these things. It's never
No,
smooth. It's really
no.
annoying, actually. But we have a lot to discuss today.
Yeah.
Because Cobra Kai never dies, Kyle, right? Because on today's episode, right, we're going to review the final season, the final 5 episodes, and season 6, and Cobra Kai as a show as a whole.
Yeah.
Because all done. So we're going to have a full spoiler-filled review for Cobra Kai. Plus, me and Kyle will talk about our 2 favourite trailers, or our favourite each, from the Super Bowl that happened last Sunday, what we were really excited to see. But first, let's review, we're a bit late in this one, but let's review September 5, which got nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Screenplay, and it was kind of shortlisted at the Academy Awards to maybe get a Best Picture nomination in other categories too. Did not make any of them, but it is there in the screenplay nominations, and it was directed by Tim Fehlbaum and written by Moritz Binder as well, and stars Peter Sarsgaard, John Magaro, and Ben Chaplin, as well as a much wider kind of ensemble piece. And so this follows one day in the studio of ABC, who are in the Munich, Germany, filming the 1972 Olympics. This is all they do is cover sports. They have Peter Sarsgaard's character Rooney, who is sort of like the manager director who just sits there and watches and knows exactly when to cut, what camera to use, do this here, do this here.
Yeah.
Really expert in his field of sports journalism and like sports editing essentially for the ABC News. But of course, well, he's kind of like he has to go home, and he's swaps shift with this other guy Jeffrey, who's John Magaro, who's kind of taking in the late night slot. But during this time, of course, people hear gunshots outside, and what's happened is Palestine guerrillas, or as they quickly are labelled, terrorists, have taken the Israeli athletes hostage in the athletes' camp. And so it sort of becomes about, do these sports journalists shift and become political journalists, real-time journalists and news anchors, or do they sort of leave that behind and just focus on the field they're at? So, Kyle, what did you think of September 5?
Well, interesting point you were talking about. I think it's also very clear to make sure that this was in the 70s, where.
I said 19.
Yes, yeah. I'm confused. I looked at the Olympics, so so obviously in this
Yeah.
point in time that news isn't we're not in the kind of global world that we are now, where everybody has a phone and
Yeah.
can record it and get online. So yeah, these journalists
Yeah,
were
news
very,
is instant. Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
very much in a scenario where do we adapt to this environment and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about this film. I only knew it was
Yeah.
actually covering the events of September 5th, given away in the title. And I didn't even know it was going to be solely based on these news anchors, because essentially it's like a 2 or 3 room movie. Most of
Yeah,
it takes place in the command center.
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everything else you see is through footage that I'm guessing is archival. Like most of it, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
will be the actual footage that they.
It is like the ABC, the guy Jim who goes in and is the one report, is the main news anchor, who's usually just a sports journalist.
He's.
That's all footage.
Yeah,
That's all footage
I
from
figured that
time.
was him.
All the footage they used practically for the actual, like the seeing the hostage situation, that's all real
Yeah.
footage.
So that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of very much stuck in this time, in this kind of room, in this period, and yeah, like I loved this film. I was so kind of gripped by, because they really set up at the start that this was a technical marvel to even record the Olympics. This was the first time that the Olympics was going to be broadcast, which was one big thing, because they were showing how insane the setup was to get all these studios from all over the world be able to air this stuff back. Because obviously, like I said, this is the 70s, everything's on film. It's a lot harder to do. It's not as easy as nowadays. That's
that.
yeah.
They literally have a guy who has to go back and transport the film from the camera at the apartments to the command center, who's like has to pretend to be an athlete to get through.
Yeah, because you had to, and it's like stuff like that, and it's like, even the little things where it's just, they did a really good job of putting me in 1972, because there's a little scene where they were like, can you slow that down? And then instead of like doing a
Mm-hmm.
computer screen, it's just a guy that has to physically just slowly turn the cogs of the film, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's just like stuff like that. I was just so
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, I like that stuff. Yeah.
intrigued and learning and how they did it
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s as well.
Yeah.
But the
Uh-huh.
story is so intriguing in the sense of these kind of journalists that kind of are like, do we just do this? Is this important?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
and then there's so much little discussions about because it's said at the end of the film when you know classic little bits of text that pop up after the end
Yeah.
of a battle that this was the first terrorist attack ever to be publicly kind of not recorded but yeah,
Oh, like, yeah, it was. It
broadcasted
was live,
broadcasted
live
uh-huh
broadcasting or something like that. Yeah.
which over a quarter of the world at the time watched, which was insane.
Yeah.
So but they were
Yeah.
like discussing like right, this is new territory, what happens if
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody gets shot, because they're like
Yeah.
this isn't public, this is real time, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you know there's like
Can we
okay,
show that?
can we
Yeah, it's
show
like,
them,
can we show
because
someone getting shot on live
they
TV? Yeah.
they know that one of the Israeli athletes was US and they have family in the US, so he's like their family will be
Mm.
watching. And then it's like the
Yeah.
director is like, if it happens, pan to the live reaction of the audience on the ground, and you're like, God,
Yeah.
that's quite
Yeah.
dark.
Because he's kind of treating it kind of like how he would. Because at the start of the film, you see him. Some American swimmers won he's won 6 gold medals, so it's like a huge record for any athlete to achieve that. And he is like everyone's like, oh,
Close up in the
should we
family,
focus
yeah,
on him? He's like, no, 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 no. Cut to the loser, and then he
yeah.
does, and then he cuts to the family, get closer in the family. So he really is meticulously knows
He's
kind of what the audience wants to see or
so
like the best way to go
yeah.
about stuff. And
He's
he's kind
almost
of treating this situation like that. Yeah.
yeah. He's like an artist, weirdly, in
Uh-huh.
that sense,
Yeah,
where
yeah. But he's very cold as well, though.
he
I mean,
is.
I really I think his character is the most interesting. Part of me kind of want to see a bit more of him because this is a huge and like he says, it's not about politics, it's about emotions is one of his lines, and he treats it, and they say someone asks, is this about ratings? And to him, it
Kind
kind
of
of is about
is.
ratings, you know. He's kind of a darker character. He's not outwardly villainous, but
It's
there is something very calculated about everything he's trying to do.
you're
Like he
right.
doesn't actually care about the hostages or their family. He does care about one being the only people on the ground
Yes,
to
to
report this
report it.
and being the first to report it. And he does care about ratings, and he doesn't say it, but he does.
It's
Uh-huh.
interesting you mention that because later
Mhm.
in the film, mild spoilers for a terrorist attack that happened 50 years ago,
Uh-huh.
but there's a part in it where they're getting the word that the hostages were
Yeah.
freed from the airport,
Yeah.
and he's like, say it, but use it like it was like a terminology like we're hearing now, something to give them
Mhm.
liability, you know, something that wasn't
Yeah.
giving them concrete proof. And then
Yeah.
the other guy was like, don't do it. But the director was
Uh-huh.
like, nah, let's do it for the ratings. Like he was always
Yeah.
like, we need to report this before anybody else
Yeah.
does.
Uh-huh.
And then
And it's sort of that, yeah, it's that sort of beginning. It's like where we're at in the real world now. Even when it comes to like reviewing games or films, or when it comes to just any breaking news story, people want to be the first out there, even when
yeah,
they haven't really considered, what it is they're putting out there. And it's kind of the beginning of that. Is that the beginning of even like the sort of fake news that's come out just because no one's really
yes,
done their proper research?
it
Uh-huh.
it's insane. I always think it's like
Mhm.
communications move slow because it's
Yeah.
like, you know, when there's no Twitter because they heard
Mhm.
gunshots and they're like, is that gunshots? And
Yeah.
then it's like it starts kind of picking up and people are phoning like, I heard there was gunshots here, and it's like once they get that second or third piece of confirmation, they kind of then take it as
Yeah.
fact. It's not as
They take
simple
it.
as
Yeah.
kind of putting on Twitter. I what I really
Uh-huh.
liked about this film was that for something that is obviously very a hot topic nowadays with the issue that
Yeah.
was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Uh-huh.
not really about that as
No, I
much.
know.
You know, it doesn't really mention much about Israeli or Palestinian conflict. More so, it
Mm.
talks about the Germans and how they
The
were,
Holocaust.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
and how
Uh-huh.
the Germans were afraid that this was gonna have a negative effect. Because bear in mind, this
Mhm.
was only 20 odd years after the Second World War.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and this was almost Germany's biggest kind of opportunity to kind of reinvent themselves. And there is that kind of
Yeah.
conversation because there's a German translator present in ABC, And there's a conversation early on that she has with the kind of middle guy. I can't remember his name. Not the top director, but not the on
Mhm.
the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot his name. Who
Mhm.
was Jewish, and
Yeah.
he sends a line. I'm guessing your parents didn't know what's happening and all that. And she's just kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
listen, my generation just want to rebuild Germany,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
almost that kind of panic that Jewish
Mhm.
bloods can be done in
Yeah.
Germany. And then that's why the German secretary they have him on
Mhm.
interview is kind of saying
Mhm.
that they all escaped because they just kind of
Mhm.
wanted to get it. They were saying they were so confident in themselves that they would get these hostages free that they're just like report it to them free. We look like the
Mhm.
heroes, and then they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
And there's so much
Yeah.
interesting stuff. And one point
Uh,
I really want to go on, which is such an interesting kind of concept on reporting and especially reporting these events, is
yeah.
at some point there's German police that are told that are completely unprepared. Um,
Mhm.
were kind of going on rooftops to kind of almost ambush
Mhm.
the terrorists.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
ABC
Yeah.
are recording that and they're reporting it, and then somebody just goes, did they have TVs in the Olympic Village? He went, yeah. He's like, but but somebody went, no, they only get local channels. Like, no, no, no. In the Olympic Village, they get all the channels so they can watch like their home
Uh-huh.
country. And the guy just went,
Yeah.
so they've got ABC. And
Yeah.
then he
Yeah.
pans down and they can see like a
Uh-huh.
television glowing, and then like
Mhm.
German police come in and go turn it off. And I was always thinking like, what moral aspect do news anchors have
Yeah. Yeah.
of
To do this. Yeah.
reporting in this where like they could
Mhm.
use it and be like, right, we know these
Yeah.
guys are here and they're coming down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was so
I
enthralled in
no
that.
no I like that aspect too, and I think you're right. I mean, I think for like you're saying, I mean, obviously the conflict in Israel and Palestine now, like you're saying, very hotly political. It is that question of why are they releasing this film now, um, and when this is such a hot
Hmm.
topic, especially in America. I think Europe is a bit different. I think there's definitely we kind of have a more leaning and kind of sympathy towards Palestine than the States.
Than the States,
Um,
yes.
yeah, and I think I've seen some reviews, not reviews. I've just seen some feedback. What am I talking about? Stuff on Letterboxd, and people are saying this. Okay, it's an apolitical film. It's not really delving into that conflict. It's more about the ethics of journalism. But I can understand some readings saying if you're taking a political stance, that is kind of taking a political stance. But I agree. I don't think the film has bad intentions
Hmm.
or is trying to specifically say one thing about Israel. I don't think it's really trying to do that. Like I say, it's really about the ethics of journalism and using the subject matter as a way to sort of, kind of highlight how moral is it what they're doing to, film these hostages.
And
It's like and to do it right in the now, and also trying to get like people involved. Oh, we need the coach who escaped to get an interview with them, and it's really about the idea of everyone's I mean it's far too far gone now, but it's that idea of milking this stuff for content as
exact.
in today's terminology.
Uh-huh.
And it's like is it how seedy is it?
And
Um
it's also interesting, sorry, that there's
mm,
a part in it where it's like the naivety of
mm,
people who don't know what's going on,
yeah.
because here they're like cutting to footage of just
Mm,
athletes at the pool,
yeah.
and the guy that's kind of
Uh-huh.
on the ground kind of giving the vocals is kind of like the
Mm,
surreal idea that the world's just going on outside of it, and it's
mm,
kind of like them
mm,
introducing the fact that nobody will have that naivety anymore because we're going to be all so
mm,
aware of what's happening all the time. But
yeah. Yeah.
I like that. I like that aspect 'cause it kind of did. I
Mm,
kind of sat there and go, well, how carefree would our lives be if we didn't know what was going on all the time
true.
because
Yeah,
of
exactly. Exactly.
journalism. And like they were giving
Yeah.
it, it's like literally 20 feet from the, or no, 100 feet, and these guys are at the pool playing
Mm,
table tennis because they don't really know
yeah.
what's happening because news wasn't that
Yeah,
spreadable.
we're not that close
Um,
to it now. Yeah.
but
I do think
yeah,
though at the end, like we're saying with the facts and figures, I mean it like I'm saying, I think it chose to deliberately just talk about that one day and not the prior situation in Israel and Gaza at that time. But they also, I really think that end text thing, they would have been a really good idea to say that the next day Israel bombed refugee camps and killed hundreds of Palestinians as a
Yeah.
reaction to the death of these athletes. And I don't know, I think that maybe I think would have just to kind of even it out. You know what I mean? Because if you're trying
I
to
I
be
I
political, I
I
think
I
that
get.
information is actually really kind of useful. I mean,
Yeah.
like Spielberg's Munich, which deals with actually
Yes.
deals directly on from the events. Like the whole first 5 minutes of that film are literally the entirety of this film within the first 5 minutes, and that's like takes from reactions of everyone watching all over the world,
Mhm.
and that is a film that really kind of addresses a far more like bigger picture about what's going on there, which is quite interesting from a Jewish director and Spielberg. But there's moments in that film
Mhm.
where conversations with Palestinians and the Palestinians are the ones with the last word because it follows an Israeli main character and his sort of what do you call it? When you sort of disillusionment with his country,
Yes.
which is really a really bold thing from someone like Spielberg, and I think Munich maybe does a better job of that than this. It's just interesting because of where we are right now,
No, no,
in
you're
terms of the
you're
whole
right.
Israel-Gaza
I
thing.
I have to admit
Hmm.
that the ending to it
Hmm.
was somewhat just. It kind of left like I was like. So obviously the news broke that they originally thought the hostage survived, so they celebrated,
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
news broke that not even that they didn't make it, but that the fighting was still going on, and that was how so
Yeah.
like out of the loop they were. It wasn't
Yeah.
that it was
Yeah.
done. It was like it was still
Yeah.
continuing,
Yeah.
and then they had to report that the hostages all had died, and then
Yeah.
the young TV director, kind of leaves,
Hmm.
and he goes to the big boss, and he was like, "I know you don't feel it, but you did a really good job today." And
Yeah.
then he
That's
leaves,
That's
and
what I
he
mean. You actually care. Yeah. Yeah.
and he just sits in his car, and the final shot is just him
Mhm.
sitting in his car, kind of going, and then it cuts to black, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting there going like, he's so like, because they're talking about he can't do anything, but then they're like, did we
Hmm.
do something? Because they are like, did we
Hmm.
cause those German officers not to be able to ambush them there and then in that apartment
Yeah.
complex? And the guilt
Yeah.
that he's kind of weirdly holding on, and he's like,
Hmm.
do I have this guilt? Do I not have this guilt? I don't know.
Hmm.
Because of how directly they, not involved, but how directly they were reporting it, he felt so attached to the
Hmm.
conflict. I just thought I was just like that ending really because it does signify that
Yeah.
that guy really just cares about the ratings. Also, funny
Yeah.
thing that obviously in the 70s there's like one satellite and they're just arguing. He's
Yeah.
just he's just
Yeah. The
arguing over
networks
the
are
phone
like
that
over
he's
like
like,
CBS with their
yeah.
slot. It's like shut up. Yeah.
I just that was
No,
a
it's
wee
so
that was
funny.
a wee technical thing that I was just kind of like that's
Mm.
it's interesting to give us that about how much they fought to get this because you couldn't just
Hmm.
air everything all the time because there's only like
Yeah.
I don't know how many satellites, but commercial satellites. I'm guessing
True.
there wasn't that many. Um,
No.
what
What's the
what
point in giving
overall?
it
Yeah.
September 5th?
See, these are the kind of films that really
Uh-huh.
click with me. I'm glad to
I
get
knew I knew it'd be your cup of
you
tea.
know this is my cup of
When
tea,
I saw the trailer and I knew it'd
and well,
be
see, I
something
never
you like.
I never saw the trailer because
And you never saw a trailer.
I know you say that
Uh-huh.
the trailer not misled you, but maybe gave you a thought it was a faster pace in a
Yeah,
film.
well, yeah, it does make it seem like, and I think this is kind of perhaps one of my critiques of it as well, is that I was engaged with it, but I didn't feel it was like as intense as I was kind of expecting it to be. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
as like kind of fast. I mean, it was well paced, and like I was always interested, but I
hmm
wasn't like on the edge of my seat, like oh my god,
That's
you know.
fair. I think
Mhm.
maybe me not knowing what was kind of
Yeah,
advertised as, I
true.
just loved it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Comparatively to like we mentioned, we talked about 6 days. I think it's 6 days what it's called, where the
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 Netflix
the,
one.
the
Yeah.
embassy one, where I was like, I liked the
Mhm.
fact that we just focused on this one team, like the
Mhm.
news anchors. Overall, I'm gonna have to give it a 9.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a unique
Mhm.
kind of aspect to show us this kind of beginning of really weird ethical journalism and how
Yeah.
they kind of learn as they go that they made some mistakes and
Yeah.
because obviously these guys are
No, that's good.
inexperienced. They're sports
Yeah.
journalists and they're kind of adapting on the go. Yeah,
Yeah.
once again, it is my kind of film, so I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that I
Yeah.
liked it as
Uh,
much. And what about you? I
yeah.
know you said,
Yeah, well, I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
yeah.
I think it's an interesting watch. It's not I was never bored. Um, I think I just for part of me I think like I'm saying I was not I was kind of expected to. I just wasn't on the edge of my seat as much as I thought it'd be. I thought it'd be
Yeah.
a bit more thrilling. It's kind of actually more like you kind of just like things are kind of more methodical. And with that, that political situation, why this film now, there is that kind of murkiness to it. I get the
Yes.
focus of it is on more on just the idea of journalism, but there's some little things I'm just like you probably could have, just for the film's own sake, in order for like it to
Hmm.
be received well. I think they could have, done some things a bit
No,
better.
that's
But
fair.
that's just me. But anyway, that was September 5th. Now, Kyle, let's talk into the main events of today, and that's Cobra Kai season 6. So yes, Cobra Kai stars William Zabka and Ralph Macchio in their, well, not Ralph Macchio's, but maybe William Zabka's final turn as Johnny Lawrence. Look, guys, this is going to be full spoilers for everything Cobra Kai, from the first episode to the very last. So if you have not seen Cobra Kai, especially these last 5 episodes which just dropped this weekend, wait, or you go watch it, or
Yeah.
if you don't care, so be it. But yeah, so after the events of season 6, part 2, where the Sekai Taikai ended in tragedy with a Cobra Kai teenager dying on the mats. Of course, the tournament is suspended. It will not have a conclusion, and that leaves some of the senseis, as like Terry Silver, Johnny Lawrence, upset that these kids, well, for Johnny, he really wants to see it through. Terry wants to see it through for another reason. So guess what? He's dying.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But the two other senseis, Daniel LaRusso and even Kreese, don't want to see this through. They think it's actually a bad idea, and there's actually a lot of guilt felt on the shoulders of them.
Hmm.
Most shockingly, Kreese, who's are kind of been one of our main antagonists throughout the whole show. So that's kind of where we're at. But all these things have to come to an end, and guess what happens? The tournament gets put on through one way or another. Some of these senses sit down to sort it out, and the tournament is back on. So, Kyle, what did you think of the finale of Cobra Kai season 6?
So I I loved it. I was saying to you that you got
Mhm.
through it a lot quicker than I did.
I got through it in a
I
night. I
and
watched it
I
all in one night.
and I was like, how was it? And I was so worried because I was like, did they mess this up? And you're just like, it's perfect. And I was like, oh my God.
That's
I was like,
perfect.
if you say to me a TV show ended perfectly, I know it's
Yeah,
golden. I know it's golden
yeah.
because I know how like you feel that most TV shows nowadays just there's never a great overall
Yeah, there's a
conclusion.
lot of. It's really hard to end a show, and honestly, because you're with these things for years,
Hmm.
and it can be really difficult, and I understand that. Sitcom endings tend to have it much easier because it's just
Sitcoms.
much easier to end a sitcom. You just go, everybody gets what they want. Hey, it's all. But with dramas, it's much harder, I think. Even though this is kind of a comedy drama, but you know what I mean.
It's a
I
thriller
mean, do we have to
actually.
talk about? Yeah, yeah, thriller. Big action. Set piece drama, whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it. So yeah, series are much harder, especially when you've been with it for such a long amount of
Yeah.
time. But my God, it's kind of everything you wanted a Cobra Kai ending to be, with a few twists and turns. Of course, I just thought it was just such a thrill ride. I think the first couple episodes of this part were purposefully a bit slow.
Hmm.
But it was. I thought the whole thing, every episode was paced really well. I was like, oh man, because when you kind of watch it, you're watching Miguel wins on the second last episode, and you're like, oh, I guess the final episode will just be like a big
The
wrap up, and like
yeah.
maybe like
Uh-huh.
a year later or something like that. Where's everybody at? And kind of just tying up loose ends. No, we're going to do a tiebreaker where Johnny Lawrence has to fight in order for Cobra
Sensei
Kai to
Wolf.
win,
Yeah.
and it's like I was like
I
that is genius.
yeah. So like see watching it, I was so I want to talk about the kind of you're talking about how some of the senses were a bit iffy on coming back to
Yeah, I
the
like
Sekai
there was a
Taikai.
split there. I like that.
The Daniel one, I was kind of like, yeah,
Mhm.
he's finally gone. A kid died. This may have been too much. And
Yes,
the biggest
being
surprise
reasonable.
was the guilt Kreese felt.
Yeah.
And his kind of realization, he was like, "Am I a bad guy?" And I was like, "Kreese, if you haven't realized that now, yeah." Technically, Kreese,
Yeah.
you're still a wanted felon.
Yes.
Because you
Somehow
escaped.
gets back into California, no problem
Nope,
whatsoever.
incredible how he could just do it.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, and he has this kind of genuine kind of realization that he has been a not even a great good sensei, but just a not a good guy, and he has this kind of
Yeah.
heart to heart with his kind of other sensei who's got the weird old grandpa kind of geezer
Yes.
who gets
Yeah.
killed. That was kind
uh,
of mad. And yeah, and he has a kind of moment of realization because it was his knife that led to his death, and he really does feel guilt, and he kind of has a moment of
yeah.
going, right, I'm gonna try and change that around. And then
Yeah.
what
Well,
honestly I
step
think
away.
is
Hmm.
for me probably the top part, the number one moment of
Hmm.
this season is Chris
Hmm.
and Johnny's chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you finally get to understand because if you've never seen the original Karate Kid, after it
Mm.
ends, which kind of happens at the beginning of the second film, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Because the first
Hmm.
film really ends with just him winning, and then it kind of cuts to black, and
Yeah.
then at the
Yeah.
end, the beginning of the second part, you kind of see the
Mm.
aftermath, and Kreese is just berating Johnny in the parking lot to
Yeah.
the point where he puts Johnny in a chokehold, almost like kicking him, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
Miyagi has to come over and just deal with
Hmm.
Kreese. And that's
Hmm.
never really been discussed in this whole six
Yeah.
seasons is what
Uh-huh.
Kreese did to Johnny after that fight, which is genuinely
Yeah.
insane. It was attempted murder. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. It was attempted murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Johnny finally breaks down and
Hmm.
like talks about how he treats the trash. And then like the most powerful line of that season is just going to go, you have no idea what those years were like with me afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
boy would have been just completely destroyed. His world was turned
Hmm.
up down by LaRusso in that kind of sense,
Hmm.
and he
Hmm.
lost the girl, and then I imagine Shun from Cobra Kai after
Yeah.
that kind of deal because Cobra Kai and the films do continue with
Yeah.
Terry Silver and
Mhm.
um, the guy's name who shows up. You know the boy I'm thinking of who kind of was the referee for when they were choosing the captains of the
Yes.
Sekai
Yes.
Tag
Yes.
Kai.
Yes. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
whose
Yeah.
mattress store burned to the ground by Terry
Yeah.
Silver.
Yeah. Him. Yeah.
Barnes. So he like Cobra Kai was still there, but Johnny was never there. So you kind of assume that he was
Yeah.
kind of gone, and the emotion William Zabka gives in that role in that scene, is
Yeah.
even
Uh,
Crease
uh,
just
yeah. That's what I was
genuinely
like.
beautiful.
The main thing I got when I think was really really wise for them to do in these last 5 episodes is they really focus on Johnny and really Daniel LaRusso to the I guess the second kind of extent as well.
Hmm.
And William Zabka is really like going all out in his performance this time around. And like we're saying, the work they did with Crease as well was a really huge, probably the biggest surprise for me actually going in
Yeah.
into these final episodes. And I really just love the way they handled the whole Crease arc to its conclusion. His conclusion gets a bit crazy, but I still really enjoyed what they did with his character and that him his quest for forgiveness. And like you're saying, that scene with him joining the corridor is just tremendous from both
Yeah.
of them. But yeah, William Zabka's performance, he's like on another. He's leveled up
He
for
is
these last this
he
finale, and it's
is
probably because he personally is like, oh my god, this is like the last time I might ever get to play Johnny Lawrence. And the way the last episode opens up with him prior to any of the season beginning, any of the prior to season one, that flashback next to his mother's grave and
yeah.
he's drinking and he's got that beard and just that whole. I just love the way they kind of brought it all the way back. It comes full circle about this guy just thinking he's a loser. You know, he's like he can't escape this thing of just him being a loser because he lost that karate match when
Mhm.
he's a kid, and just subsequently his life has just never fallen into place. And that's just who he feels he is, and that's really weighing on him going into that final match.
Yeah.
And I just think they did a great job of really executing
Yeah,
that stuff with Johnny.
you're so right, Adam. I mean, just to see
Mm-hmm.
Johnny retain some of his Johnniness, especially where
Mm-hmm.
so he proposes to Miguel's mum, and in doing
Mm-hmm.
so, he's like googling the best or awesome
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
proposes,
it's a funny
like
montage.
and it's just
Mm-hmm.
him still being a wee bit of Johnny, and he marries her, and they have a child and a daughter, and
Mm-hmm.
he's still drinking beer while he's holding her, and it's still weird Johnny, but
Yeah,
he is genuinely changed in this
so much
character
over the course of the show.
over
Yeah.
the course of the show, and like
Mm-hmm.
see, like I could discuss a million ways about how this show is just peak perfection, but I love when they bring back characters that were in the films for
Mhm.
like 5 minutes
Yeah.
to like who are part of Johnny's gang, to kind of explain to him like, this, we all moved on, and
Yeah.
you can as well. And effectively, second season, he
Mm.
meets with Tommy and they go for a bike ride
Yeah.
when
Mm-hmm.
Tommy dies from cancer.
Tommy
And
dies. Yeah. Can.
the fact that the actor himself was dying from cancer and subsequently died
Mm-hmm.
about 9 months after the episode was filmed, the,
Yeah.
the power these writers give to these characters to kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's genuinely insane for a karate show.
Mm-hmm.
Like that
I know. I know.
that episode of Tommy's death is, I cried. I was saying like, this is
Yeah.
heartbreaking shit, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's everybody kind of slowly kind of explaining to Johnny that this isn't it, but then Johnny does just hold on because he needs it, and
Mm-hmm.
the person to eventually help him through it is
Mm-hmm.
Larusso, is Daniel,
Mm-hmm.
and Daniel comes to this realization for it because his entire arc is just get rid of Cobra Kai. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
he hates it with a passion, and he's kind of almost
Mm-hmm.
brainwashed by Mr. Miyagi, which we find out is because Mr. Miyagi killed somebody for basically stealing his late
Mm-hmm.
mother's pearls and stuff like that, or his late
Yeah.
wife's pearls,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
did it out of self-defense. And the kind of reason that Miyagi taught defense is because he knew he could kill and he had to show restraint. But
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
difference between restraint and just not going on the offense at all, which I think Daniel
Yeah.
eventually realizes at this
Yeah.
point in time, and realizes that Miyagi-Do won't defeat the Iron Dragons. And he has this great scene with Terry Silver, because Terry's like, mate, you're never gonna win. Cobra Kai might win.
Yeah.
And Daniel just
Yeah.
looks at him and goes, Cobra Kai never dies, and he just walks
Yeah.
away. And,
His delivery is
and,
yeah.
and that's I think literally the last conversation Terry and Daniel have, and I just think it's perfect.
Mm.
It's just this kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we like fuck you and I'm off.
But we have to.
Yeah.
We'll get to the whole like the children and how all the
Yeah.
children's story wrap up. But however, the Terry and Kreese finale, right? Episode 4, the second last episode ends with the final confrontation between Terry and Kreese. Because Terry, like I said, he's dying and he's got nothing left, but for some reason his legacy will be winning the Sekai Taikai under 18s Karate Championship.
I love when they emphasize it's the under 18s, by the way.
Yeah,
that's also the
yeah.
funniest part. It's like it's not even the
Yeah, and it's like he gets to the point. He's on his yacht, which is all he's got left. He's given up everything else in his life, and he's like, right, the only way like we've got to certify this win is if I take Johnny's wife and child hostage. Right? That's the only way. It's the only way for me to possibly win this now is if I take them hostage. And then boom, Kreese shows up on the yacht, takes out the hitman, and has a final confrontation with Terry. And I was like, oh, okay. In my head, I was like, well, Terry's going to win this fight, and Kreese is going to die, and Terry has to make it to the end. No, they decide to end their conflict in an incredible, realistic CGI explosion with the yacht blowing up, and because there's this whole tank of oil there on the top of this yacht, and Kreese with the cigar has to throw it in there, and it says, what was it?
Well, no.
He goes, no,
Terry, that's the best thing. Terry just goes, no, and he just goes, mercy. And if you don't realise it, it sounds so bizarre out of context.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's ridiculous because one, the boat seems to be in the middle of the water. How did he get there?
Yep.
He's completely dry. Two, the fuel tank for a boat like that size is at the bottom of the hull, not at the top deck. If anything, him throwing that light would have caused a small fire. It's like, but you're right. It's just like we were watching it. I think like one of my favorite scenes from this season, like 6 as a whole, like all 15 episodes, is there's like a mild flashback to when like Terry's accountant's going. It's like you've only got this amount left. He's like he spent it all in the dojo. He's like, I want more. And it's like and how he's talking about he's literally sold all his houses. He's literally only this boat left because of all of it.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, this guy's really lost it. And he just goes, I want the wife and the newborn baby.
It's so ridiculous. I didn't even care about Cry till like 2-3 seasons ago when Kreese was out.
Kreese really ruined that man's life. It's so funny.
What I also like in the next episode, right? No one gives it. No, there's never any like newspaper or news article, or the Kreese has a
Nobody,
gravestone.
nobody
Nothing. It's just
knows. Nobody knows.
nobody. Literally, Wolf just goes, "Hey, where's Terry?" And that's the only thing anyone questions about the whereabouts of
Uh,
Terry and Kreese. Which is so funny to me. How no one goes, "Oh yeah, where is Terry?"
yeah,
I guess they don't care.
I I love to kind of move on to the kids because obviously it partially is
Yeah.
their show. That
I mean,
I,
Miguel. It really is
it
being
is
Miguel as
it is
well.
Miguel.
Miguel
Miguel
with
was
Johnny.
this Karate Kid from the beginning of season
Yeah.
one, and basically um Robbie gets his leg basically broken by Axel in their semi-final
Mhm.
fight,
Yeah.
and
Actually, a
um
really good performance from him when he's in the medical bit,
mhm.
and Johnny's asking like, "Are you okay?" Obviously, kind of knowing the answer, and just I really thought it was a really tender performance from him, where he's
Do you know
kind of just
what?
like, "Man, I really thought I would win.
Yeah,
Like I thought I'd be able
because
to do it."
he's
Uh huh.
talking about how he's not really because it's mentioned at the first episode or something that his grades aren't great
Hmm.
and he might not graduate,
Yeah.
and he feels like this is his only path in life. And Miguel had that conflict where he was like, "This is the only way I'm going to get into Stanford if I win this." And they
Yeah.
had those kind of they're
Yeah.
both relying on karate for their futures, and you like you
Hmm.
I can't remember Tanner. I think that's the actor's name. He's given great
Hmm.
performances as Robbie in the past. See that scene where
Yeah.
he breaks down. He goes, "I'm sick of hating you, Dad." Like in season
Yeah.
4 or 5, I was like
Hmm.
incredible,
Hmm.
just brilliant. Like he shows that he is
Yeah.
because they are kids essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but Cobra Kai basically. When Kreese is having a heart-to-heart moment with Johnny, he goes, "Is there any way I can, even it?" But he goes, "Oh, there's one thing," because Cobra Kai would forfeit the final match of the men's if they couldn't announce a replacement to Kwan's death.
Yeah.
And Tori has decided that she's going to go up and fight the girl after Sam has kind of stepped out from the fight,
Yeah.
right? And something that I kind of like is that, especially with Sam, is that they kind of give her limits, and she actually accepts that she has his limits. Even though she's the
Yeah.
daughter of Daniel LaRusso, she's
Yeah.
not she's not going to be the female Karate Kid, right? They're
Yeah.
giving
Yeah.
that to Tori, and I love it because Tori has gone through
Hmm.
some shit in the last few seasons, man.
Yeah. And
Absolute
I also
crap.
kind of, yeah, and I kind of like the way that Sam went about it. That she's like, "Oh, Tori, I need you to help me train."
Yeah,
When it was kind of like, obviously, I think Sam kind of knew herself that she wasn't going to see it through, so she used it as a means for
to
to
encourage
help
her.
Tori train, like
Uh-huh.
subconsciously, and not know that she would be training for the final fight.
Uh-huh.
Because
And
I think
then
she says no at the start. Well, initially she says no, but she's very easily convinced to
yeah,
go
yeah,
with it
no, no,
eventually.
she is. I mean, this is the world of karate. So,
Yeah.
but when they kind of announced his joining, and Miguel and Tori and Johnny come out in the
Mhm.
Black Cobra Kai gis, I was like,
Yeah.
yes. To AC/DC's Thunder as well. I was like,
Yeah.
I have to admit, there was a wee bit of that yes moment there. I was like, get it,
Yeah.
and like the. The things I really like, there's kind of two moments. Miguel pretty much wins his fight pretty easily.
Mm.
Well, no, saying that. So each final fight, so you've got the Tori fight, you've got the Miguel fight, and you've got the Johnny fight. Each of them have really kind of
Yeah.
interesting parts to me. Is that
Yeah.
Tori doesn't need spurred on by violence or stuff. She needs to
No.
be known that she's loved. And Robbie comes
Yeah.
up and says that he loves her and kisses her. And that's the emotion
Yeah.
I love it.
That is so true.
I like how we get different parts because with Johnny,
Yeah.
he needed Daniel LaRusso to basically Cobra Kai his ass.
Yeah.
Tori,
And Kyle Disney.
that
Yeah.
wouldn't have worked with Tori because that
No.
what she needed healing was to have people that loved her in her life because she has just gone
Yeah.
through crap. And
Hmm.
I really like that. Miguel, I said to you, I really like Miguel's fight because it really shows that the amount of detail the editors and the creators put in where they
Hmm.
cut in little scenes from him doing fights from like season one and
From
him
like every
mimic
season as well.
every
I think from
season
almost every season.
and he's
Yeah.
just mimicking the moves and I'm just like God,
Yeah.
imagine like actually paying attention to detail in your own show. Like the stuff that you could actually do. It's insane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like Johnny Daniel Russo doing the Cobra Kai speech to Johnny. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because the final
Yeah.
fight, everybody comes out in the black geese. Daniel Russo,
Hmm.
I said to you, if you told me 20 years ago, I'd be seeing Daniel Russo in a black Cobra Kai gi, I'd say you're high. You're on
You've
your
lost
thing.
your mind.
You've lost it. And then he came out in the black gi, and I was like, oh shit, man, this is Danny Lewis. I'm
It's
like,
phenomenal.
this
It's
is brilliant.
phenomenal.
I was like,
Um,
give us a clap.
yeah, yeah.
It's insane that I love the fact it ended with Johnny and that fight.
No,
Couldn't.
I agree. I'm really glad it's because like when you look at each part of like the way they've broken up season six, look, I know they broke up season six because the Netflix want, they wanted like to be like number one show in different months and for their stats and views and all that.
And it worked.
Not all that bullshit. Yeah, yeah. But it is broken up quite nicely in a way where it's
Yeah.
like kind of each segment is kind of about the different like this part two is really about the kids
Hmm.
in that tournament. And this final part really takes it back and really focuses on Johnny, Daniel, and Miguel and towards the fight towards the end. And I'm happy they chose them to be the champions. Like that just
Yeah.
makes sense that it would be Miguel and Tori. Even though like you want Robbie to win because he doesn't really have much else, but of course Robbie gets a happy ending anyway, with him
Yeah.
and Tori getting their karate sponsorship.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
what you
we
told me,
yeah,
yeah, you can tell me about this.
Tyler Lawrence went on, so Kenny, and he said that they
Mhm.
had, like, apparently the contract was fully made up. Like, they got like the Leo team just to make a random contract, and they
Yeah.
included the salary because they wanted
Okay.
their honest
Well,
reaction. So
what was the base
the base
salary?
salary was $750,000.
What? That's insane.
That's
That's
insane.
insane. It's ridiculous.
$3,250,000. And they're just, I'd be like, if I was Miguel or Sam, I'd be like, nah, I want that. I don't want a college
Can I get the? I won. Miguel will be like, I won. Can I sponsorship deal?
So yeah, she was
That's
saying that
crazy.
that was the number they had on that contract for their reactions, and I was like, your reactions were not big enough for getting 750,000. And it's just then she goes, and
But
that's base salary. It's like,
yeah, that's the base stuff. But this is not. This is a universe where they show karate in like bars and stuff. So like it must be the number one sport in the world. You know, when you remember
the
that
under
scene,
eight.
Johnny's friends are watching it in a
Yeah,
bar.
it's just
Like, oh,
it's
obviously it's
it's in the
something
bar and
important.
it's on TV, and you're just the way you text me going. It's funny enough that it's karate, but once again, it's funny that it's the under 18s. It's just
Yeah,
hysterical where it's the under 18 second take world
yeah,
champion, and it's just like
yeah.
we're showing it here, and yeah, it's I like I said to you, I really liked the Robbie and Tori got their version of a happy ending because they were never going to be, they
Yeah,
weren't the academic kind of group,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
one off. And I do what I also kind of really like. I like the maturity that they showed with Miguel and Sam's characters, where
yeah.
you'd have a lot of like, especially cheesy kind of kids
Uh,
shows where one of them sacrifices it to stay with the other. But they were
yeah.
like, no, and he's just like, here, I'm going
No,
to
they
come with
don't.
you for the first 2 months. I've deferred my program
Yeah,
to start in the fall. I'm not doing the dinosaur program. We can travel because
yeah,
Sam goes off to Japan to like study abroad.
yeah,
And I just was like,
mhm.
so mature. Like I really
Yeah,
like that because
yeah. It's
it
like
wasn't a break
the
off.
relationship.
It wasn't going a
Yeah, the
different
relationship
way.
might not work out.
Uh-huh.
Like there's no guarantee for that. It's just like, yeah, we'll obviously have to go our separate ways. And yeah, but obviously with like Hawk and Dimitri, they got to go back to the boys got to be the same uni. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I love the fact that they after Dimitri just constantly talking about MIT for the last 10 episodes, they just went to
yeah,
his character. Nah, you're gonna Caltech
yeah,
with Hawk, and and yeah, and it's an incredible way to end the season, especially that the kind of the final scenes where you learn that Johnny's starting up Cobra Kai again, and
Mhm,
him and Daniel are kind of dual teaching, but they're both teaching their
mhm,
ways. Daniel teaches
yeah,
defense and restraint and
mhm,
kind of youth, and then Johnny teaches punching, and then
mhm,
that's what he does
yeah.
well.
Johnny teaches
Um,
punchy. But of course,
and
Johnny needed that Miyagi-Do teaching. When it came down to it, when it
he
came down to the
did.
wire, he needed
And
it.
I see. I like to point out that Johnny actually won the Sekai Taikai by finally sweeping the leg. And
Yeah, yeah,
I have to admit, see the bloody references that they did in this entire
mhm,
season.
yeah,
Incredible. See the final bit when he won and he just goes, "You're all right, Lawrence." I was just like
yeah,
clapping. See when he eventually played the song, I was
yeah.
also clapping.
Uh-huh.
I just kept
Uh-huh.
constantly clap for those last five
I
episodes.
think I think Cobra Kai is a really good lesson in like for the wider pop culture sphere and like cinema and TV. It's like this is kind of how you do the soft reboot or and kind of the callbacks and the
Yeah.
nostalgia baiting stuff. They do it in a way that is emotionally satisfying and definitely not just doing it in a like cheap service. Like they waited till the last moment to even reference that bit, you know. They really restrained themselves because they knew him. If it was like series, like see like when like they start doing Miyagi Do, Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
Kobo dojo thing, and like a couple episodes in it goes, "Oh, you're all right, Lawrence." So you'd be like, "Oh, okay, I guess that was a fine callback." But they restrained themselves to the perfect moments to do this stuff.
Uh-huh. To the
That is
parallel.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just for a parallel as well, just to sort of like look how far the relationship has
Oh,
come
see,
throughout the course of these years. You know?
it's incredible. I know you're talking about, you say soft reboot, and I've said many times that many studio execs should watch this show and take notes because
Yeah.
the season one of it is such
Mm.
a original just flip of the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is the Karate Kid flip, and a lot of people would kind of go, it's just the Karate Kid, but
Yeah.
it does it in a
Yeah.
way that's good, and it's reintroducing
Yeah.
people to this story, giving you the original story,
Yeah.
but twisting it so that if newcomers could come in, they could go, I know exactly what this is. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. But new people
Yeah.
could come in
Exactly.
and they could understand it, and then they could go and watch the
Mhm.
'84 film and be like, oh yeah, this is the Karate Kid
Yeah.
story, and they were giving it a new way, something that other
Mhm.
major studios cannot do apparently. Um, but then, like you said, they can expand it and like telling you something. See, every end of each season of this show, end of
Mhm.
season one, you got Kreese coming through that door. You're like,
Yep.
clap. End of season two,
Creases. Yeah, here we
you've
go.
got Miguel being thrown off a stair, and like
Oh yeah. Oh no,
it's
in the
like
high school attack. Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
yeah. See,
yeah.
end of season three, you had this insane Vietnam flashback through the entire thing, and then he
Yeah.
calls up Terry Silver,
Mhm.
and then like season four,
Crease, is that when Crease goes to jail?
season four, Kreese goes
End
to
of series
jail,
four.
and
Yep.
then Cho from Japan Okinawa comes over to help train.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
season five, it's the Sekai Takai, and I'm just like, you
Yeah.
you do it so well that
Yeah.
you kind of just gear up. Like
Mhm.
every season finale of that gives you something that's just kind of like, holy crap, what's gonna,
Look forward to. Yeah.
what's he leading? And then you got was it season five, the end of one? I can't remember. They're like teaming up together, and it's just
Mhm.
like, it, I don't understand how they did it with the Karate Kid of
With all
all
properties. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
properties, how they
Yeah.
do it, they did it with the Karate Kid, which is genuinely mind blowing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like I said to you, it started off on YouTube Red, if anybody can remember that back in
That's the
2019.
weirdest bit to me. Is that this
You
originally
know,
was what? So the first two seasons were YouTube Red, and then Netflix
first
took
two
over.
seasons were YouTube Red because they
Mhm.
posted them on Netflix for the release of season three. And I still
Mhm.
have your message going, why do I care so much about a karate show? And look at you
I know.
now.
I remember saying because when it got to Netflix, I was like, "What?" Just before Series 3 came out, they put the first two
Mhm.
on it so that people could watch it. And then I still remember just like us sitting down in like in the flat in Dundee, um, with Sam and CJ, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to watch this Cobra Kai thing?" And part of me was like, "Oh God, not really." And I was like, "Fine, put it on." And I was like halfway through episode, and I was like, "Oh, I'm actually getting a little bit invested here." And then I just couldn't. I did not stop watching for
Like,
3 seasons. It's like boom,
it's
there you have.
so
Yeah.
understandable because see during those times
Mm,
we had Star Wars sequel prequels, we
mm,
had
yeah.
Jurassic ones, and we had
Yeah.
more misses than hits. The only
Yeah.
genuine hits would probably been Blade Runner 2049, and
Yeah.
then Cobra Kai. So it's
Cobra
understandable to
Kai. Yeah.
be extremely kind of pessimistic about it and being like, is this going to be good? And also the fact
Mm,
that it is off a random trilogy of films from the 80s that at the
yeah.
best point are decent. The first one's great,
Yeah.
the second and third
Yeah.
one are alright.
Mm,
Nothing would have been enough to justify making 6 seasons of quality
of
TV.
this. Yeah.
Should have brought back Hilary Swank, that's all I'm saying. I think that would have been the absolute peak if you brought back Hilary
everyone,
Swank.
everyone would have loved that stuff.
Everybody would have loved
Yeah,
Hilary
but
Swank.
it's fascinating. They're really. I hope not me, of course. I mean, I want someone else to do a big like YouTube essay about soft reboot, how to really properly soft reboot things and using Cobra Kai and all these other modern examples which have kind of failed. But anyway, Kel, what are you going to rate? I guess rate Cobra Kai as a whole. It's all done. What are you giving Cobra
It's a
Kai?
10 out of 10. There's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah. Mm,
What they've managed to pull off in 6 seasons with this
mm,
show and introduce this kind of uh, this story to a huge amount of
mm.
people, rewriting Jackie Chan of all people as well. Like they've,
Yeah, we
you know,
got we got a
you,
movie in a few months.
you were saying that you're very glad that they didn't cameo at the end. Just
So happy, so
it
happy.
does
And you
set it
see,
up, doesn't it? It did
it
set it
sets it
up.
up because it cuts to black and then it boom we and I was like okay, and then it opens up with Johnny and Daniel in the restaurant, and I was just like, oh, this reeks of like post credit scene bullshit stuff, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna do something with Jackie Chan in a minute. But no, it's just generally them
It's
having dinner and like their
genuinely
like
dual,
ideological
yeah.
differences, and that's it. And I was like, great, thank God.
That was a beautiful
Yeah,
way to finish it. A
yeah.
genuinely beautiful way. But what about you? What about you, Liz? Give us yours.
It's interesting, right? Because it comes down to like Cobra Kai is maybe not like like the most beautifully shot show in the world.
Yes.
Definitely throughout its entire runtime, might have a few filler episodes, but it's really like
Boat
it's about
CGI.
the end. Yeah, some fucking weird boat CGI, some just insane stuff. But that's Cobra Kai in its DNA. And yeah, even though like that's the thing, like no film or show is perfect, and there's definitely flaws in Cobra Kai, but at the end of it, it's all about how you feel about a story and where you're at with it, and how satisfied you are with these characters and these emotions and the story of it all. Um, and I'm so satisfied with Cobra Kai. I had a blast watching all of it. I love these characters. I've had roller coasters with some of them. Some I've truly hated at points, but by
Yeah,
the end of it, I'm really happy with it. And Cobra Kai is a 10 out of 10.
it is, isn't it?
It's
Though?
flawed, but it's just
It is. It
so
is. It
good.
is flawed. But there's
Yeah.
there's no other point you'll have that tiny guy Brett going, "Oh, your cat,"
Mm,
and they go outside, and then
mm.
2 seconds later he's thrown through a window, and that boy's like
Yeah.
8. And like
Yeah.
there's no show
Yeah.
in the world that can do a girl finding her mother dead and her
Yeah.
heartbreak and how to control it, as well as
Yeah.
having a school shooter who's a karate person. There's
Yeah.
there's no show in the
There's strange
world that
parallels.
can blend
Uh,
those two together. Um,
yeah. But that's the thing, like at the end of the day, like I think it has been nominated for like best comedy series like a few
mm,
years ago. And I know maybe some people take some sort of offense to that, but it's not an offense. Like it is a genuinely funny show, and it knows exactly how cheesy and silly
mm.
it is. Like it knows exactly what it is, and that's why it's so good. But of course, it has the dramatic moments, and it has these moments that make you tear up as well. It's just a successful story. It's funny. It can get dramatic. It's completely ridiculous,
It's
but you're with it for
so
the ride. And
clever.
Cobra Kai is a
Uh-huh.
great time. Uh
It,
huh.
if you've ever considered watching it, please do. It's the redemption arc that of both these characters
Uh
face,
huh.
from
Yeah.
Daniel being a top of the world arsehole to kind of acknowledging
Yeah.
that his way is not always the right way,
Yeah.
which is Daniel's whole issue, and Johnny
Yeah.
kind of just maturing as a man and becoming the
Yeah.
father that he needs to be, not
Uh-huh.
just to Robbie, but even to Miguel and now to his new
Yeah.
daughter,
Mm.
and kind of accepting what happened in the past, letting go, and
Mhm.
it was a genuinely
I think
hilarious time. And having Kreese and Terry blow up was genuinely the funniest thing they could have done.
uh yeah, it's so good.
See
And the
now,
thing is as
now
well,
thinking
right?
back, there's no better ending for those two. There's genuinely not.
No, I mean how it's like how else are they gonna take them out? They gotta die.
Yeah, they're
And
gonna blow up.
the thing is as well is that I remember like after watching like 4 series of it, I was like, God, I kind of feel like they need to wrap this up. And then they did season 5, and then they announced they're going to do like even more, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But you're rewarded by the end of it.
Yeah,
And that's sort of kind of like proving me wrong as well, because at points I was like, God, maybe they should just kind of wrap things up in like the next season. Like how long can this go on for?
yeah,
But it does. It all works in the end. And it's one of these shows that I would rewatch as well. Like there's very few have times I've ever rewatched a whole entire series.
yeah,
I've done it with maybe like I've done it with Twin Peaks, and I've done it
yeah.
with like sitcoms and like Breaking Bad I've rewatched. But very few times I've ever like rewatched TV show, but Cobra Kai is something I would happily sit down and rewatch with anyone because
Uh-huh.
it's so fun.
It's such a fun time, and
Mm.
I know what you mean about how you feel like they're wrapped up, but see, then they're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, you've talked about the Valley. What about the World
The
Champions?
world.
And I'm so glad that they
Yeah.
just jumped to the world because they could easily have done the U.S. Championship, the North
Yeah.
American
Yeah. Yeah.
Championship,
We spent too
you
long here in the
know,
US.
Six
But anyway, let's
Nations.
quickly
Yeah.
before we kind of sign off today. The Super Bowl happened last Sunday. I think a
Yes.
long time ago to me. I don't really know why. It feels like it was longer. So of course, every year. I mean, I'm just gonna get this list up. Every year, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trailers that come out around the Super Bowl time. Um, God, what do we have? We had Lilo and Stitch, we had Thunderbolts, Captain America: Brave New World, a new Jurassic World TV spot, Sinners, Mission Impossible 8,
Fantastic
and
for Defense Force.
Fantastic Four,
How to Train Your
and
Dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon, and what's the one I was literally just thinking of there? Oh my God, this is literally the last one is escaped my head. The one I'm actually quite excited for. Oh, I can't even remember anymore. But yeah, we had plenty of these Super Bowl trailers. So, Kyle, what one piqued your interest, and I guess which one this bunch is your most anticipated to come see?
What I tell you what kind of piqued my interest because I was extremely intrigued to why we're doing these because you know how we feel about live action remakes, right?
All right, okay,
So weirdly, the How to Train Your Dragon one kind of interested me because I'm just kind of saying,
right,
what are
okay,
we doing here? Like, are we doing anything different? And
yeah.
essentially, no. Essentially, it is a shot-for-shot remake. But for some reason, I felt there was just a slight more charm than there was present in these Disney remakes, right?
Really?
I
Okay. To
just,
me, it doesn't.
I don't know
It doesn't
why.
appeal to me at
I don't
all.
know why. For me, there was just something just there. And I read something that was interesting. And this is, I'm not justifying these at all, but the director did say, 'cause it's the same director, I'm pretty sure that did the animated film, that
Is it? He's doing the live action
I'm
one, right? Okay.
pretty sure because they're talking about how he's using it as the animated as a test screen because apparently the animated one was quite rushed to get it from
What?
book to film because obviously they're actually based on a series of kind of
Yeah.
books.
There's
Um,
hundreds of those books. Yeah.
yeah, so he's actually said that they're wanting to do more in this one that they couldn't do in the original film. I don't know.
Mm.
I was intrigued. It didn't annoy me that much because I was like, for some
Mm.
reason I just felt. But anyway, that's that aside. Um, what do I care? Jurassic Park. Don't
Oh, Jura,
care.
I can't believe it. I
Um,
really can't believe we're doing it. See, when they announced that Jurassic World was getting Gareth Edwards direct, I was like, okay, that's a good fit.
mhm.
He does scale like, incredibly well. I was like, this ball is perfect. It's perfect. He did Godzilla and he did the Creator. I was like, yeah, okay, that's really good. Um, and I've just been utterly just like my heart sank when I watched that full trailer.
Yeah,
I was like, Jesus Christ, it's the same thing again.
yeah.
I really just do not want to see that Jurassic World film. Like
And
I couldn't do it.
I don't
Yeah.
know why doing it, but I just was like, it's so bizarre. See when you compare Scarlett Johansson and Jonathan Bailey. Jonathan Bailey's
Mm.
trying to play somebody, and Scarlett Johansson's just playing like her generic action role.
No, and it's literally just the line that makes me just cringe every time. It's like he says some stuff about these dinosaurs, and then she goes, "None of those things that you said were good," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, obviously, it's
And
fucking dinosaurs."
it's
Like,
see,
oh, it
yeah,
made
because
me
I'm
so
watching
angry.
it. Cause there's like a mutant dinosaur that kind of looks like a xenomorph, and
Mm.
there's a shot where
Yeah,
it's Gary Evans loves chucking a red flare up in a giant creature. He did it with
yeah,
Godzilla, and it's so
yeah,
annoying that I'm just like, there's Gareth Edwards. That's literally that one scene. I'm like, there he
yeah,
is, there he is,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
where's he in the rest of the film?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, obviously the kind of the big players.
Mm.
I want to say the big players would be Mission Possible because obviously I want
Yeah.
that to
I
make
mean, look,
money.
I'm so biased towards that because it's one of my favorite franchises. I think the action has just been phenomenal in most of the films. And what I really loved about that spot as well is the expanding aspect ratio. Like it
Hmm.
starts off very slim and it slowly gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we get end with that awesome looking biplane stunt. Which apparently we've not even seen like the tip of the iceberg for some
Yeah.
of these stunts apparently
Uh,
in this film, which I can't wait to see. We get a cool glimpse of the submarine set piece as well. But that biplane stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to
that
see that whole
I
entire
you
sequence. Yeah.
know I've come around to the Mission Impossible films definitely since
Yeah.
Dead
Mhm.
Reckoning and Fallout. I am
Mhm.
hyped for that. I really am
Yeah,
excited. I had so much fun with Dead Reckoning, just Dead
yeah.
Reckoning, no no part one.
I can't. Yeah, it's just Dead
Um,
Reckoning. I actually can't wait to sit and do my rewatch of them come May.
yeah.
Watch
Um,
them all before potentially the last one. But the one that really caught me is F1. F1 is the one that
yeah.
looks quite interesting. Like, oh, I mean, you don't need to show me anything Mission Impossible 8. I'll be there day one for IMAX, best seats, whatever. Like, obviously, you don't need to advertise that to me. But the F1, because same director as Top Gun Maverick,
Hmm.
and I don't really care for the F1 sport. Uh, in all honesty, I know I have some friends who really are quite passionate about it, but yeah, I'm really intrigued using that same filming technique they did for
Hmm.
Maverick this time in the I guess the cockpit of
Yeah,
the
yeah, no, no,
F1,
you're right,
whatever
yeah.
it's called, F1 cars, using IMAX cameras again. This thing, it's not experience it. Look for those lines. It's not experience in IMAX. It's filmed for IMAX. It's going to be a huge aspect ratio. It just looks like it's going to be quite thrilling. I don't know if it'll be a
Well,
success.
I
I
know, but
mean, yeah, like.
do you know what is most kind of gripping me to go and see that? Is
What?
purely going to be the sound. Because I think that's just going to be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
mate. See
yeah,
that IMAX sound and the
yeah,
car racing.
yeah,
Like I said, I'm not much of an
yeah.
F1 person. The last car film that came out didn't really appeal to me. Gran Turismo, based on a true story. Full
Oh
title.
yeah, that's
Um,
Vital's review of that.
yeah. So like
Yeah.
I was thinking this is going to be like. I mean, I love Top Gun's different because planes are cool and stuff for me. But
Planes are
I
cool.
am putting my faith in the director and being like, right, I'm pretty sure you're pretty good with vehicles. I'm pretty sure you'd be good with
Yeah,
any vehicle.
yeah.
Let me sit down for that, and I'm just excited for the sound. I think the sound's gonna be
I,
incredible.
and yeah, I think even if the story in that is a bit iffy, like there will definitely be some set pieces to remember.
Yeah, there's gonna be some set
From the
pieces.
looks of that spot. You got any dishonorable mentions? I mean that shit. And God, they had a Brave New World spot that I obviously didn't care about. I mean,
Bra
neither of us have
Bra
seen that film,
Brave
so.
New World is what it is. Obviously, Fantastic Four came out. I'm more just worried about that film than anything.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, because a lot of it, I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and then I'm like,
Yeah,
this is just gonna be generic at the end of it. I just know it.
yeah, I know.
Uh,
I
I like the Jack Kirby approach to the thing. I think the CGI
Yeah,
definitely needs a tiny bit of touch up.
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
around his eyes. They just feel like they're just kind of like super glued on. But
Hmm.
I do like the heavy brow aspect of the thing. I just kind of like that.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I like the costumes as well and stuff. But yeah,
I
um,
yeah yeah. I'm interested for Pedro Pascal as well because it does seem that he could be trying in this one, which I'm kind of interested about. Um,
we got Last of Us 2 coming out in a couple of months as
by the way, you said that they know
that.
they're going to do like 3 seasons of part two.
What? They're
Like
milking part two for three
apparently it's
seasons?
going to be
Oh
three
my
seasons
God.
because they were saying like, oh yeah, I see the whole show being a 4 season story.
Right. Oh, right. So they're really,
That's
really
one
going to stretch
season
this
done.
out.
That's three more.
Yeah.
Bloody
That's
hell.
crazy. Oh. Right. Anyway, I guess I'll wrap up today's show. Thank you very much, Kyle, for joining.
You're welcome. Cobra Kai never dies.
Okay. Cobra Kai never dies. Yes, we just give our opinions on those Super Bowl trailers, September 5th, and of course, Cobra Kai. We will miss you. But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. See you next time.